1X by 3 Days Grace is probably the most well-known, I guess, quote-unquote, emo rock album from the most well-known emo rock band. Like, seriously, 3 Days Grace were huge at the peak of the emo rock scene, and they're still pretty fucking big today, so I guess it goes to show you the success that they did actually have. Now, I would call it more emo rock due to the themes rather than the sounds, because it definitely sounds more like heavy rock, I guess. I don't know genres, don't get upset with me over that, but yeah, it sounds way heavier than your typical, like emo rock, or at least what people generally call emo, at least in terms of instruments. But yeah, in terms of the themes, this is as emo as it gets, and I think that this album, alongside a lot of albums like it, was exactly why people even nicknamed this sort of genre as emo rock to begin with, or just emo in general, because yeah, a lot of people's first encounter with, especially the heavier sound that eventually led to the introduction of metal to those people and everything, was due to these more emo rock bands that sort of appeared, and they were actually kind of heavy, some of them. And obviously I'm not saying that they were exclusive, but emo got pretty fucking big in the 2000s. Like, really, that was a huge portion of essentially any rock band or any rock sound, and even the mainstream. So yeah, overall, this album, I would say that it's not necessarily a concept album, but it's more a thematic album, where the theme is basically just angst. It's teen angst. It's overall very, just negative thoughts, the anger, the depression, just being sad overall and stuff like that. Which is why I named the video what I did, because it's quite literally, I am 14 and this is deep. Look, I'm gonna be honest, the album doesn't really get all that deep or complex about emotions or anything like that, and it was mostly appreciated by teenagers. And I think that's actually really good, because it gave teenagers an outlet to express themselves and express their negative emotions. I think that especially in art, especially when it came to a teenager audience, there's always this lack of complexity when it comes to, or not complexity, but maybe variety when it comes to the art that they end up having or that they can consume. And back when emo got big, it gave an outlet for people to be able to express their more negative emotions and interact with their more negative emotions, which as a whole I would say just led to people that were overall healthier, especially when it came to their emotional health, I would say. And the thing is, and the best part of this album, is that the songs are super catchy, right? Like, I could sing any song in the album, easily any song, right? I already obviously knew some of them, because 3 Days Grace, obviously, but I had forgotten how good pretty much every single song on the album is. Like, every single song is good. And I think that a part of it that I don't see a lot of people actually talk about, from the song's perspective. Sure, the instrumentals are catchy and everything, the songs are well composed and whatnot, but to me what really sold it was mainly two things. Number one, the voice effects and the voice layering that is going on throughout a lot of the songs, that really made 3 Days Grace stand out from a lot of other emo bands. It was that production value that went into the album. And secondly, obviously Adam, like the singer, it's not the older singer anymore, because he kind of came back into the band, so now the band kind of has two singers, at least for the album that they are going to release or already released, I forget. But yeah, he pretty much just had the perfect voice for like the emo genre, which is these clean but also kind of just raspy enough that just really sells these angst songs, but also makes them sound really good, right? I think that these two things is really what set 3 Days Grace apart from a lot of other bands. Obviously, the instrumentals and the composition and everything and the production value really sold and elevated that, and elevated Adam. I don't think that Adam alone would have been able to sort of make it. But overall, when you put everything together, they really stood out from the crowd, and I mean, eventually there were a lot of, I guess, copycats and a lot of people that felt inspired by them and wanted to essentially just do what they were doing. So I think that those are the elements that really tied everything together. And overall, I gotta say that the instrumentals are really good as well. Like I think it's easy to talk about Adam, and then the singer and everything, of course. But I think that a lot of people don't really acknowledge how good a lot of the riffs in the album are, and how good the drumming is. Like, I think the drumming especially goes very, very underappreciated when it's not super extravagant or anything like that. It just does its job so well. Like, it sells the songs and the concepts of the songs and the emotion of the songs so well, in my opinion. And I think that it's pretty fucking underrated. I think that a lot of people don't really talk a lot about it and don't tend to actually pay too much attention to it. Outside of that, as an adult listening back to this album, I think that a lot of albums that are happy, especially amongst teenagers or when you were a teenager, I think that a lot of them tend to age kinda badly. But looking at this album, even today, it's like, nah, man, this album is just good. Even for adults, like the themes, they might not be the most complex thing or whatever, but I still find the album a very good outlet for me to sort of just kind of let go, I like with an album like this and how well it aged, it's no wonder that they are still big today. Like, I think there's a lot of artists that tend to get big because of one song or whatever, and then just sort of trail off to eventually not having a career anymore, I guess. But 3 Days Grace are still pretty fucking big. And with an album like this, it's no wonder that they're pretty much the emo rock darlings, pretty much, right? Like, if you think emo rock, it's 3 Days Grace, pretty much, right? Only a few other bands come close to being, like, in that sphere of influence, be it emo rock or, I guess, emo metal. There's very few bands that come to that sphere of influence, and I would argue that none of them are as big as 3 Days Grace, right? The consistency throughout the album is just really amazing, honestly. I think that any song could have easily been the single of the album. I could have easily been like the popular single of the album. I think the singles they chose were above all of them, though. Like, I don't want to play favorites, but definitely the singles, they did a good job choosing them. But even then, even if they chose every other song or any other song, it would have been good anyway, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I thought the album was, solid from what I could recall, even though I didn't exactly... I mean, I was like, I don't remember a lot of the songs here, and then I would, like, hear the first few seconds, I'd be like, oh, wait, no, I remember that song. Yeah, I mean, look, I did not remember just how actually fucking goated every song is. Like, I cannot name you a single bad song from the album. Like, every song is just that good. Every song is just... You can easily sing along to it. It's super catchy. Like, every single song, it's that good, And while definitely I do tend to prefer the singles over the rest of the album, I think it depends a lot on the mood. Because I think, like, depends on the mood, because sometimes if I'm under a certain mood, I can easily, have over and over in my head and listen to the song over and over, actually, Time of Dying, or, even One X, right? Like, there's a lot of songs that, depending on the mood, I'm gonna go for them, right? So every single song in this album is just great, right? And then we end with the title song of the album, One X, which essentially is different than every other song, because every other song on this album is this angst, filled song, but this song is more uplifting, right? It sort of uplifts the entire album, which is filled with angst, and I think it's a pretty perfect closer to everything. You have songs where you are angry, you have that angst, you have that sadness and whatnot, right? And then by the end, it's sort of a moment where you can just let it all go, right? And, like, remind yourself that, okay, I've gone through those emotions, now, like, I'm ready to see the positive side again, Like, it sort of reminds you that, hey, hope still exists even after a hard or dark journey. And it was pretty great. It was such a, like, closing moment that just closed the journey. It was like reaching the end of a dark journey, reaching the end of a arduous path, it was pretty much, to me, it's the perfect closer, honestly. And yeah, again, like, I can understand why people love the album so much and why people have it in such high regard, because it is that good, honestly. It is the complete package. It's every song could be a single, every song you can easily sing along to, every song is a banger. Every song falls into this theme of, teenage angst, where it allows teenagers especially to be more in tune with their negative emotions and have sort of an outlet to express them. And then, the consistency throughout the entire album is just amazing. And then it ends on a super high note, in my opinion. So yeah, honestly, I always thought this album again was solid, and I always had it in, like a 7, 8 out of 10. But I think after listening to it again, maybe I'm too generous with scores. I mean, to be fair, again, like, I don't give that much of a shit about scores, but maybe I'm being too generous, but I think it's a 10 out of 10, honestly. Like, as far as emo or, like, these sort of sphere of teen angst rock slash metal goes, this is the album. Like, I think there's only a few other albums that complete the package, and that's it. This is one of the albums, if not the album, that pretty much defines what emo is for a lot of people. And again, I can understand why that is. So, yep, I'll see you tomorrow with another album.